if you eat a banana, should you throw it on the ground and let somebody slip on it and fall? Or should you put it in the ground under your plants and feed it? Fact or fiction, right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast. All right, everybody, before we get started, 2 announcements. One, it's about the 15th of the month, so we're going to be doing our drawing for our monthly seed giveaway. So check your emails, because we only give you 1 week to respond before we move on to the next person. And then 2, the 4th episode, the 4th mini-sode of every month is going to be exclusive to the patrons. So we'll do the first 3 of the month, and then the 4th one's going to go to the patrons. But you're lucky, because we're going to talk about banana peels right now. So, first of all, have you ever...
Wait, and there's an easy way to become a patron, so the links are below.
Oh.
So, there's
check. So, before we say anything else about banana peels, have you ever slipped and fallen on a banana peel when you stepped on it?
No, I've never.
I feel like I need to one day. I feel like I just want to step on one and slide through the whole house, you know?
No, but, there's a time frame once a banana gets to a certain level of ripeness that I can't stand the smell of it. And then there's also, once I peel a banana, I need to, like, it needs to be moved away from me. it's a nose thing. So you won't see a lot of bananas around my house, banana peels.
Do you eat bananas green or when they're like brownish?
I eat them at the cash register, because they clearly are like going to be overripe by the time I get them home. No, in all seriousness, I like it a little bit firm just before it gets mushy if I'm eating it raw, and then anyway, I mean, any ripeness after that doesn't matter if I'm like cooking it or if I'm freezing it or whatever. Yeah. But I'm going to be truth moment. Bananas are probably the thing that I waste the most when it comes to food. Just because of that whole dance of the level of ripeness that I prefer.
Yeah, they can get weird fast. So I like mine a little bit more ripe, but I also didn't eat bananas for a number of years because on boats, bananas are bad luck. So there was never a banana around.
Oh, because of the whole slip factor?
I don't know why it's bad luck. And I've asked many people, and they have never told me. But I know one thing. I always wanted a damn banana. So they're very good. And we all know that bananas are high in potassium. Yeah, so if you don't eat your bananas, And I've actually seen, I remember one time I had to go to the hospital and somebody was having some heart issues. And they checked and they're like, oh, your potassium level's low. So they gave them a potassium shot and they're like, go home and eat some bananas. So, that was a doctor saying that. So I'm like, okay. But if that being said, when we put the banana peel in the ground under the plant, does it actually feed that plant enough potassium to affect it? You know what I mean? This
is one of the places that I really struggle with these kind of, fact or fictions or garden myths, because I always have a big question mark around, is it worth your while, or does it just feel good that, you've read that this would help your garden? Or do you just have something in there? Like, me, I normally turn my garden over at the end of every kind of, late summer, fall season, right? I'm pulling things out. Has it really had a chance to break down?
Right.
I don't know, And, I don't do compost, so there's that. I mean, I guess maybe you do have an answer if you're looking at how much, how quickly your compost is breaking down. Lay it on us.
So, oh, man, you put me on the spot.
I know. Welcome to my world.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
No, so I was doing a video the other day and I was amending my garden, and I actually talked about stuff breaking down, the speed of it. And so when I amend my garden, I put a layer of leaves down, and then I put, compost and other things on top of it. And when I first went to go plant in the spring, I dug down and it was leaves. I mean, it was a solid layer of leaves. And I was like, what the hell? So, I was able to combat that and, churn the dirt a little bit, put a little compost in and make it not an issue. But when I came back in the summer to replant again, it was all gone. There was no leaves left. Yeah. So it definitely broke down. And I know when I turn my compost, the one thing that I put in my compost that does not break down fast is orange peels and avocado peels, they don't break down fast at all. The one thing about the bananas is as they get older, their peels get thinner and thinner. Like you can visibly see that they get thinner. So, and I mean, if you let one sit on the counter and you take it off, you can tell it's like paper thin. So I do think that they break down. I just question. I question if it's true, but what I like is what you said is it just makes me feel good that I'm doing it. You know, I read it and so I did it and it made me feel good. I feel like there's something there.
Yeah. So so I am normally anti that, just doing a thing to do a thing, right? And in addition to how quickly it breaks down, or does it break down in enough time for it to be beneficial to your garden? I think you have to roll in quantity. How many do you really need? But in this moment, I just had this feeling of, well, maybe it's just simply okay if it makes the person feel good. You know, as long as they're not out there like, you know, swearing by it's the absolute truth if they're not sure that it's the absolute truth, and it's just something that makes them feel good, maybe that's okay. I don't know. What was your there?
Miss Batavia's on fire right now.
Hold on, wait. You know, I almost sang This Girl's on Fire, but that would be so offensive.
Well, you know, the one when you said like people are out there singing that it's true, like that's a real thing. You know, somebody does it, they get a good harvest, and a lot of people, you got to put the banana peels in there. Yeah, you got to put them in there because it's going to go in there. It works. I'm telling you, it works. You know, you'll get that. Yeah. Now, I think that this can be a little toxic. I think that if you have soil issues, and maybe you have too much potassium, maybe you should not put banana peels in your soil, you know, so maybe
But how would you know that?
By getting a soil test.
Okay.
So that's kind of, you know, I mean, there's other signs that a plant will do, but really before you start breaking it down, it's like get a soil test. But I think before you'd have to worry about it, you'd have to be putting a lot of banana peels in.
Did you catch the pass, the alley-oop that I was setting up? That was on camera, so I'm not sure if you saw that. Okay, but go on.
So I know a guy, and he's a landscaper. This was back in the day, and so where we live is the most northern that palm trees grow, wild. You know, they can thrive. Is the northern most tip of South Carolina on the coast. So I'm very close to that, but they don't grow naturally here. So we'll get because they're in a different zone. We'll get a good freeze, and I remember one year everybody's palm trees died, everybody. So it's always kind of a little bit of a battle to keep them alive. And this guy was a landscaper. He owned his business doing it, and he would go and he would put a bundle of bananas at the base of the trees. That was like what he did. He said they all thrived whenever he did it because palm trees are known to require a lot of potassium. Okay. That being said, I'm not convinced. You know what I mean? Like I'm still not convinced. Like, okay, as a palm tree, like big deal. You know what I mean? Like I'm not eating palm trees. You know what I mean? So if I apply that to tomatoes, I don't know.
I love the idea of giving something back to the garden that you've used. So I love that concept, right? Which again, I love the concept of composting. I just can't bring myself to do it. But moving back to banana peels, I don't want, how should I say that? There's a saying now, it's like, insert this thing has you in a chokehold, like you can't get past it. Right? I just don't want that because these lists start to add up. You know, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do this. And I feel like it just complicates gardening unless we know it to be true, you know, which if you go back to the previous episode, I teeter on this whole, you know, is it okay to do it? It may have been the previous episode or it may have been 5 minutes ago. I can't remember now. But is it just okay to do because, you know, this is your way. This is your ritual, right? These are the steps that you normally take. Kind of your warm up to gardening, maybe. I don't know. Right.
I agree with that. So while you were talking, I had to double check the use of potassium in plants. And I'm glad I did. So potassium helps plants to move water. And that's the part I knew, but the part I didn't know is it and sugar inside of themselves. So it makes fruit juicier and sweeter and it also improves the quality of flowers. And then the other part that it's pretty commonly known is that potassium actually helps this plant to be stronger. So you'll get like a stronger plant from it. So that being said, if you eat a lot of bananas, like maybe you should just drop, maybe some peels or the whole banana under the plant. But we know that the ancients back in the day, the Native Americans, we all were told in grade school that they buried fish under their corn and the corn would grow. So
I've heard that like in current days for tomatoes, but I'm sure it goes back to that.
Yeah, that's where I originally heard when they were growing maize, that is, not corn. So that being said, I have a way that you can incorporate this without putting it directly in your garden if you're worried about it.
Okay.
Put it in your compost pile.
Yeah, that nixes me out. So my concern, just as a maintenance thing, would be something digging up what I've put inside of the garden, which is tied to the same concern I have regarding compost. So there's that. But that's me personally, right?
Yeah, well, it's not something that is just you, though. That's a fact. Things like I put in, so every year I put crab shells in my garden. As just like kind of like an additive. It's not really something I preach too much because I'm not totally sure about it. But every year I put it in, and every year something comes in and digs around in there. So it's like it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I meant the. Oh, I guess I didn't say the word because I'm tired of saying the fear for me. Yeah. But the fear associated with something digging it up. Like I'm already thinking to myself, off topic, but we got 20 minutes, right? So I'm already thinking to myself, how am I going to check at night for hornworms when I'm afraid that there may be raccoons out there? Because I've seen one raccoon in like 15 years of gardening.
Right.
And now I'm just like...
And you know they're out there every night.
No, that's not my understanding of what's happening.
But no, it's a legit worry. You know what I mean? And so I think the benefit of putting a banana peel down might not even be enough. Maybe you need a couple banana peels. And are you eating that many bananas?
And there's no evidence to this, but it just seems like a single banana peel. Like, because we talk about broadly the garden, like a single banana peel, I'm going to say it's not going to do anything for your full garden, bed, your garden row. Will it do something for that particular garden area, what you're planting there? Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. Do you think even with a single banana peel, could you kind of OD on potassium? Probably not.
No, I doubt with a single one, but
So I guess my point is that you can't do any harm, if you will. Right.
Yeah, I don't think you could do any harm, but I just don't think that it's really worth your time and effort. Per se, but I will say this, I want to go back to the compost part for a second because that's what makes it so beautiful. And even if you don't make compost and you just buy compost, like it's still, the benefit of it is because all of these things are mixed in the compost and they're all broken down, so it's all basically even. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have enough of a certain, ratio of your browns and greens, like you're gonna know because it's gonna be putrid. It'll just be like a sludgy, sloppy, horrible smell. So when you go and you buy a bag of compost, and a lot of people are getting like the Moodoo or something like that. Yeah, that's mostly it's manure, but you don't dig in there and be like, damn, I got a bunch of cow shit in my hands. You know what I mean? You dig in there and you're like, this is nice, beautiful compost. It's the same thing. Like all of this stuff, all this food and stuff's broken down, and it all kind of evens out over time. Versus taking these bananas, like my buddy there, and he takes a bundle of bananas and puts them at the base of a tree. That's a lot to kind of ingest of one certain thing. And may I add, it's probably...
but trees are humongous compared to what we may be talking about growing in our garden. So you kind of have to, balance size of the thing you're trying to feed, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and then the argument goes, does it even matter? You know what I mean? Because, if you look at, like, kids eat as much as some adults because they're growing. You know, so maybe these trees are fully mature, they're not really growing, and you're just feeding them excess. And then the question comes, if you're doing, let's say you're doing that method, you're like, I'm going to take...
Excellent point. I need to acknowledge that's an excellent point.
Thank you. And say, let's say you're taking a bundle of bananas and you're putting them at the base of your garden. It might almost be cheaper to buy a bag of potash and put down there.
I don't know, bananas are pretty cheap. I don't know how much potash. I mean, that's probably the last of the cheap food left, bananas. Shit.
So it's just food for thought.
Yeah.
You know, I get very leery when people say, put this in the ground, it's going to add this to your plant and make it thrive. I get very leery of that. I know like coffee grounds and stuff add nitrogen, and I am a believer in that, but I also know that if you put too much in, it makes it acidic.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be careful for all of these things of, you know, if you have potassium issues, I'm going to say, well, first of all, let's stop. Let's rate it real quick.
All right.
So we're going to give it 1 out of 5 shovels of compost. What are you going to give it?
2, just because there's ignorance in my response. I don't know. So just when it comes to being believable, I don't want to be the ass that's just like, it's 1.
Yeah. I was going to say 1, but I can get on board with that. I can give it a 2. Just
then I called everyone that gives it a 1 an ass, and you decided to bump it up a notch.
No, because it is one of those things that like I don't have a way to prove it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there seems to be something there. Like I get it, right? Like I firmly believe that the garden for eons was fed based on what comes out of gardens, right? So
yeah.
I firmly believe that. I just don't know if we're applying it in the proper way. The collective we.
Yeah.
So that's where my pause is.
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying, because before we rated it, is if you have a potassium issue, I would not try to fix it with bananas.
Oh, that's a good point.
That is not a road I would go down. I think if I had a potassium issue, what I would do is I would go buy some potash and put in there and, you know, do it appropriately instead of, you know, and it's a very sexy idea to say, hey, I went to the grocery store and got everything I needed to feed my garden for the year. I think that's a very beautiful thing to say. It's very romantic to think in, you know, your mind that you've done this all from nature. And I'm not saying you can't, but if you have like a specific issue, as much as I like organic gardening and everything, I have no problem letting technology step in to correct the course when it's gone off. And to kind of make it better. I have no issue with that whatsoever.
I think I want to say do research, and by research I mean search on internet websites to see what's the formula when it comes to using banana peels to aid in amending your garden. But I say that, and I'm like 98% certain that I wouldn't do that. But it feels like it's romanticized. Like it feels like that seems to be the right step.
Yeah.
So that's what I got.
I would be very curious to see how much potassium a banana peel could add to your soil. And you know what? I didn't even look it up, so it may be out there. I don't know.
I bet the internet can tell us.
There's somebody out there that's done a study, I'm sure, of these things. And if not, I bet there will be now. So, you know what, though? As I think about it, I just have a really big taste for some banana pudding. So this is what's going to go down.
You.
I'm going to go eat some banana pudding. Tell them something good.
See ya.